Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to see so many of you here. I'm Inge Reist, Director of the Center for the History of Collecting here at the Frick Collection, and I'd like to welcome you all to our two-day, really a day and a half, symposium, Going for Baroque. I know we had to do it. Americans Collect Italian Paintings of the 17th and 18th Centuries. By now, many of you have become regulars, if you will, at the Center's twice-yearly symposia. I see any number of familiar faces in the audience. And you therefore are aware that even though these events tend to focus, and they're indeed designed to focus, on patterns and models of collecting in one particular area of art, Italian Baroque painting in this case, they also give us an opportunity to explore how collecting in a certain area relates to the larger socio-political economic context that is so essential and to the study, interdisciplinary study of the field of collecting history. And that is why some of the papers that you'll hear this weekend emphasize marketplace issues and the influence of literature and educators on the behavior of collectors. Can you all hear me okay? Maybe this has to be a little higher. Okay. As always, this symposium was organized with the thought that all of the papers should resonate with both general and specialized audience participants. We do this knowing that the content of the presentations is absorbed differently by different listeners, and we can all gain from the exchange of reactions and ideas in this forum that we have given you. Tomorrow's panel discussion and audience question and answer will underscore this, I'm quite sure. But ultimately, it's our hope that this occasion, complemented by the Center's other programs, our fellowship programs, and our oral histories and publications, will encourage further research and expand and enrich our knowledge of collecting history in this country in the broadest possible picture. I couldn't be more pleased with the exceptionally distinguished group of scholars who have joined us this weekend to illuminate why and how Americans have often fitfully been engaged with Italian Baroque painting over the centuries. And for this, I have to single out Pete Bowron with heartfelt thanks for spending so much time brainstorming with me about shaping the program itself and judging best whom we should approach to speak on which topics. But even with Pete's unstinting help, which I did indeed have, the symposium would never come together were it not for the help of the Center's assistant directors, Samantha Deutsch and Esme Quadbach. They so calmly and willingly leave no detail unattended to as they help me plan these events, and I really could never, ever thank them enough. My special thanks goes to Ian Wardropper, Director of the Frick Collection, and Stephen Berry, the Andrew W. Mellon Chief Librarian at the Frick Art Reference Library, for their unerring support of all the Center's activities. Neither could be here today. It's not a reflection of their opinion of Baroque art, and I hope not of the Center either. The date of this symposium had to be changed some months ago due to the anticipation of our Mauritshuis exhibition that will bring in such crowds, and this date was no longer available on their calendars. But they really were terribly sorry to be missing this and missing all of you. Last but not least, I would like to thank the Robert H. Smith Family Foundation for its support of this series of symposia and for this one specifically. In doing this, they recognize the important ways that such events as these kindle new ideas and new ways of thinking. This is actually the second of four Smith-sponsored, Smith Family Foundation-sponsored symposia that our center has and promises to host, all of which focus in one way or another on Renaissance, Baroque art, or sculpture. And now to the subject of our symposium. For me, this topic is particularly close to my heart, as Italian Baroque art and architecture was the principal focus of my PhD at Columbia. I studied with giants in the field, Rudolf Wittkover, Milton Lewine, Howard Hibbard, just to name three, and I can't help but wonder what they would say, seeing that it is now collecting art of this period that fascinates me at least as much as the art itself. In my day, the Academy was not all that good about focusing on collectors. I'm not always convinced they are yet. So I'm happy that we can now redress that balance somewhat and give the collectors their due. We planned this symposium well before the new installation at the Metropolitan Museum of the European Paintings Galleries that was unveiled last May. And at that time, in our planning stages, we never could have guessed that our choice of subject would be so beautifully and tangibly endorsed by Keith Christensen and his colleagues, like Andrea Baer, who you will hear from tomorrow. Luxury, according so much of the prime real estate of the galleries to Italian Baroque paintings in the first and largest spaces at the top of the stairs. So now we're delighted to jump on that bandwagon and celebrate Italian 17th and 18th century painting. Until recently, I think we would all agree, it seemed that Baroque art didn't enjoy quite the same level of popularity as, for example, Renaissance or Northern Baroque art. Maybe too many Madonnas, too many martyrdoms, possibly. Or maybe it's an art that's so effectively related to its own era that it speaks less meaningfully to another. And yet, one look at the images in our program, we're particularly pleased with this program this time, and I think you can agree that there is so much more to Baroque art than Madonnas and martyrdoms. Moreover, even though no one would likely argue that a passion for Italian Baroque art is a typically American phenomenon, our speakers will chronicle the peaks and valleys of popularity Americans have felt for the colorful, energized, and spiritually charged imagery that characterizes Italy's art of the 17th and 18th centuries. As those of you who attended our symposium on British models of art collecting and the American response will know, Americans of the Enlightenment, Jefferson, Robert Gilmore Jr., for example, eagerly did seek out pictures by the Carracci, Guido Reni, Carlo Dolce, Sasso Ferrato, even if only through copies of after those masters. And in doing so, they were very much following the lead of their British exemplars. But then, not the least because of changing winds in art criticism, John Ruskin in England and Charles Eliot Norton in America at Harvard, Baroque fell into disfavor, to put it mildly, really. Edith Wharton's delightful novella, False Dawn, that I'm sure many of you know, shines the spotlight on this perfectly, I think. She establishes her young protagonist, Louis Racey, as typical of the new taste for Renaissance masters when he disregards his father's request to return from Italy with a with a Guido Reni, and then he appears back on the home threshold clutching a Piero della Francesca. So after the age of Norton, Wharton, Henry James, and Bernard Berenson following them, a taste for Baroque art had to be kindled anew. Through the efforts of enlightened museum curators and directors, above all. And these individuals are the focus of many of the presentations that you will hear during the next day and a half.